Hey there, Cinemaster fans! Hope you're ready for some movie magic. Let's dive right in. The story begins in 1997 in Washington State, specifically in a small town called Index. Kat Martin arrived there to spend a few days with her family and her grandmother Bernice. With her was her son Jesse, who planned to take advantage of the trip and go hunting with his grandfather. In the kitchen, Bernice was preparing different sandwiches for them because her husband doesn't eat the same things Jesse likes. Bernice asked Kat about Jesse and how he was doing at school. Kat told her he was still being bullied, but she was optimistic it would pass soon and didn't want to interfere. Outside the house, Bernice gave Jesse the sandwiches. Kat said goodbye to them and left. But before Kat entered the house, Johnny, Bernice's husband, stole his grandson's sandwich, telling him he was doing him a favor because bacon isn't healthy. Johnny and Jesse reached a well-known hunting spot. Johnny took the guns out of the car trunk and gave one to Jesse. It wasn't their first time hunting together, and Jesse had gotten used to handling a weapon. The first target was a deer. Jesse hit it with the first shot, just as his grandfather taught him. But the deer didn't fall, so they quickly ran after the blood trail. Jesse wanted to rest and eat, but his grandfather refused and kept going, and the boy had to speed up to catch up with him. As he was running, Jesse heard a strange sound. He looked between the trees and saw a strange animal, so he started throwing it food to get it to come closer. At the same moment, Johnny heard the moaning of the wounded deer, and when he reached it, he discovered he was alone, and Jesse had disappeared behind him. Johnny finished off the deer, angry, and started looking for his grandson, calling out for him and worried about him. Jesse was walking alone, and suddenly stopped in front of something incomprehensible, a staircase in the middle of the forest, cut off at the top, but leading nowhere. Despite the strangeness of the place, the staircase was intact and sturdy. Jesse felt curious, and went up a few steps. At the same moment, Johnny found Jesse's bag and weapon thrown on the ground, and felt disappointed. Jesse saw the strange animal and ran after it, but when he got closer, he saw a terrifying scene. Pale hands suddenly appeared and grabbed his head tightly. Johnny heard Jesse scream and ran as fast as he could toward the sound. He saw the strange staircase and saw Jesse being snatched up and lifted into the air before his eyes. The boy was crying and saying, "I'm sorry, Grandpa," and suddenly, he was pulled away and disappeared from sight. Johnny ran quickly, firing his gun in fear after seeing something terrifying. Years later, exactly 20 years later, the Dick brothers were making their last stop before reaching a place called Saltic, a remote place where they planned to take a long trip deep into the forest. While talking to a man at a small cafe, he told them to beware of something called the blood moon, and that many people disappear that night. His wife interrupted him and told him to leave them alone, but Nick noticed the walls were covered with photos of missing people. Josh laughed at him, not believing these superstitions. They reached the gathering place and met Rebecca, Josh's fiancée, who introduced them to her friend Jordan. Josh was surprised that their friend Chuck was late, but Nick told him Chuck had suddenly canceled and brought instead Doug, who was known for being rude. Doug arrived in a chaotic way, shouting from the car and stole Josh's sandwich in front of everyone. They had no choice but to accept his presence, gathered their things and started the trip. After 5 hours of walking, Nick started getting tired, but Rebecca told him they hadn't even reached halfway. Nick forced himself to keep walking, while the others continued normally despite his obvious exhaustion. But after a few more kilometers, they agreed to take a short break before Nick fainted and collapsed. While Josh was helping him carry the bag, he discovered that a big part of Nick's fatigue was because he ignored Rebecca's instructions about the luggage and brought much more weight than he should have. Doug took the opportunity to rummage through Nick's stuff, and Josh got annoyed when he spotted a knife among Doug's things, clearly stolen. Despite this, Josh offered to switch bags with him. Nick agreed to leave some of his stuff hidden behind a rock to lighten the load. After they resumed walking, the group came across a place that looked like a primitive hut made from tree branches. The boys were surprised and excited, but the girls felt the place was very unsettling. In the end, they decided to walk past it without stopping. As they were walking, Rebecca stopped to tie her shoelace and let them go ahead. At that moment, a woman in a yellow dress suddenly appeared on the path and quickly approached Rebecca. Rebecca panicked when she saw the woman's legs looked decayed. The clothes were dirty with soil and blood, and the woman was making a strange sound through her terrifyingly sharp teeth. Rebecca tried to protect her face with her hands, and when she opened her eyes again, she found that the creature had moved away a bit. But around her there were murmurs and terrifying sounds coming from every direction. Terrified, Rebecca started calling her friends and running to catch up with them. But the woman in the yellow dress suddenly appeared in front of her again. Rebecca screamed and ran quickly towards the primitive hut they had seen earlier, thinking to hide inside. But as soon as she got close, she saw an even greater horror. The woman was waiting for her inside the hut. At that moment, Josh and the others arrived after hearing her scream and found her in a state of extreme terror. Rebecca tried to tell them what happened, but her words sounded like madness. Doug went back to the trail, laughing at her fear, and Josh tried to reassure her, asking if maybe what happened was because she was dehydrated. This made Rebecca even angrier. The only one who got a little scared was Nick when he heard Rebecca's description of the woman. At that moment, they heard Doug screaming and ran to see what happened. They found his shirt hanging on a tree, and his bag had fallen on the ground near a small lake. But suddenly, Doug came out of the water laughing as if he had pulled a silly prank, until he noticed his body was covered in blood and full of leeches stuck to him. Jordan used the lighter to burn the leeches off him, and after they finished, the group continued their journey. After a while of walking, they started to hear someone calling in the forest in a strange way. Josh was the first to see the scene. There was a man in a suit, standing alone in the forest, talking to himself and looking down. When they got closer, Josh saw a woman in a yellow dress sitting on the ground. Doug was shocked when he noticed the man had a huge old wound on the back of his head, and the man was still talking as if nothing was wrong. He was saying he didn't do anything on purpose and that everything would be fine as long as no one bothered the thing, especially when she realized that the woman sitting there was the same woman she had seen. Jordan tried to help the woman, but when she got closer, she noticed the woman was carrying a child. The screaming started, and the man became even more agitated. Josh blocked him and stopped him from approaching the woman. At that moment, the man noticed their presence, got angry, and told them not to interfere in family problems. He pulled a gun from his suit jacket and pointed it at them. But the child's screaming drove him mad, and he turned the weapon on himself. The bullet came out of the same old wound, as if he was repeating the same tragedy. Strangely, he remained standing and spoke normally. The woman stood up, carrying a strange creature that looked like a huge moving larva. As soon as they saw this, the whole group ran away. In the chaos, Josh left Nick's bag behind. They wanted to get back to the car, but it was getting dark and there was no time. So they decided to set up camp where they were. Josh took the first watch while the others slept. Doug had a strange dream about Jordan. He didn't even notice when his sleeping bag started being dragged outside the tent. As he was dragged through the forest, he was still dreaming, and his dreams blended with what was happening around him. He saw himself passing far from Josh and saw the giant larva in his path. He quickly glimpsed the person who kidnapped him, and he looked more hideous than he could imagine. Doug was being dragged away from the tent while asleep, and his dream reached its peak. He suddenly saw Jordan turning into an unnaturally ugly monster, as if she was tearing a pillow, but in reality, she was tearing him apart. Doug started screaming in terror, which woke Josh and the rest of the group. As soon as they noticed his disappearance, Josh said he was probably just overreacting from the tea he drank and that he wandered off because of hallucinations. Rebecca was terrified and didn't want to leave the campfire to look for him, but Nick showed them clear marks on the ground indicating that something had dragged him away. He said Doug would never go far without taking his flashlight with him. They had no choice and agreed to start searching for him under the light of the blood moon. As they followed the trail, Rebecca found one of Doug's shoes, but the trail suddenly ended as if he had vanished from the face of the earth. Josh said he must be close, walked a few steps ahead, and found Doug's sleeping bag torn and stained with blood. Rebecca was even more frightened and said they had to turn back and take another path through the forest, leading to the ranger station. Josh objected, saying there was no way he would leave Doug without finding him, and also argued with her because she was the one who forgot the map at the camp. Jordan stepped in and stopped their argument when she saw a strange light in the woods not far away. Josh was convinced that the light must be Doug and convinced them to go check it out. There, they found a strange staircase, like the one that appeared 20 years ago, but this time 2 lamps were hanging from it. Jordan asked how there could possibly be electricity here, and no one could answer her. Josh was drawn to the strange place and started climbing the steps, even though Nick was begging him not to. But he was mesmerized and couldn't hear anyone until Nick called out to him with a truly heartbreaking plea. Josh noticed that the stairs didn't even have any dust, but before he could continue his descent, he heard muffled voices. It was the voice of a boy calling for his grandfather and a man's voice calling for Jesse. Josh circled around the staircase and found a closed red door. When the group caught up to him and got impatient with his delay, they all heard the voices too. They assumed Doug might be locked inside. Josh knocked on the door with all his strength. The door opened and he slipped down another staircase, fell on his head, and injured his leg. Nick quickly came down to help him and told him that this place was more like a huge basement, so vast that you couldn't see its end in the darkness. He helped him up, and they started climbing back up to return to the girls waiting above. But suddenly, they heard a scream coming from deep inside the basement. So they decided to keep investigating. Maybe Doug was there. They walked a bit and found a small boy sitting curled up, the same age he was 20 years ago. It was Jesse. Jesse started talking about an evil man and suddenly ran off when he heard a growl from afar. Josh and Nick ran after him. As they ran, they discovered that this basement was not an ordinary one. It was a huge underground facility. Jesse told them that getting out was hard because the place kept changing. Josh and Nick reassured him that they had just arrived, and Jesse was happy to know they had come to rescue him. They all walked together, without seeing the creature hiding in the shadows. Josh started to doubt the path Nick was taking, but they agreed to keep going as they were. Suddenly, Jesse stopped abruptly and pointed to the side. Nick shined the flashlight in that direction and was shocked to see the same monster that attacked Doug. The group ran as fast as they could, and the girls were still waiting at the red door. They let Jesse go up first, then Nick. Josh was delayed and said he thought the monster had left. But before he could finish his sentence, the monster attacked him suddenly and began to devour him before Nick's eyes. Nick ran up quickly, shut the red door, and collapsed on the ground from exhaustion and fear. Rebecca told him they had to escape immediately, but he couldn't move until the door started shaking violently, as if something behind it was trying to get out. Then Nick ran with all his might. He got out the door just seconds before it broke down. As they were running away, Nick stumbled and fell in the mud. Rebecca went back to him and found Nick lying next to Doug's corpse. When Nick got up, he showed the girls that the place was full of many corpses in various stages of decomposition. The shock turned into real terror when they heard the monster's growl getting closer. They all ran with no clear direction until Rebecca spotted a caravan parked in front of them in the woods. The four of them ran quickly toward the vehicle parked ahead, but unfortunately only three of them managed to get in, because Rebecca was grabbed from above before she could reach the door. Nick tried to grab her and save her, but was shocked by the amount of blood that poured down on him, forcing him to let go of her hand so he could quickly shut the door. At that moment, Jesse told them that this creature never gives up, that it's always hungry, and needs to feed, and also feeds its young. And his words were confirmed when the monster started attacking the vehicle, shaking it violently. The attacks were intermittent, and they used those moments to talk and plan what to do. Jesse finally introduced himself, and Nick felt the name was familiar. When he asked him a few questions, he remembered that Jesse was his old schoolmate, who disappeared with his grandfather in the 90s. Jordan couldn't believe what she was hearing, but Jesse explained to them that when he passed through the red door, he felt like he had entered a strange other dimension. He told them there were many exits in the darkness, but he and his grandfather never managed to use any of them because the monster was always blocking their way. She said they had to look outside. Jesse objected and told her that his grandfather taught him that these creatures never leave their prey once they catch their scent. Jordan and Nick approached the window, and before they could do anything, the car was attacked again. Nick lost his nerve and started looking for anything to defend themselves with. Jesse offered him a small knife his grandfather had given him, but Nick told him he needed something bigger. While searching, Jordan found a rifle inside the driver's cabin and started loading it with bullets, but she had to stop when the creature attacked them again. Jesse told them that the creature could hear them, so Nick got an idea. He asked them to make noise while he opened the car door and threw metal objects far away to attract the creature's attention. They tried the plan, and Nick threw some pots and spoons far away. Indeed, the creature ran toward the sound. They repeated the plan again, but this time Jesse was the one to make the noise, because Jordan was busy with the rifle. Nick opened the door and threw 3 pots far away, drawing the creature's attention. Jordan got out of the car on her tiptoes, but fumbled while trying to ready the rifle. The creature saw her and ran toward her. Jordan started shooting, but the bullets weren't enough to stop it. Nick ran back to the car, terrified by her screams, but he didn't give up and grabbed a gas cylinder from inside and asked Jesse to close the door after he went out. He told him that if he didn't come back, he should stay inside until the creature left. Nick went out, threw the cylinder far away, and when the creature approached it, he lit a flare and threw it at it. The explosion happened, and the creature caught fire and ran away screaming. Nick tried to go back and save Jordan, but she couldn't hold on. From a distance, Nick saw the strange ladder burning. Jesse came up to him and told him he wanted to go home. Hours passed, and the place was filled with police. The sheriff couldn't believe that it was really Jesse Martin, but they found neither the ladder nor Josh's body. This made Nick's story hard for anyone to believe. The strangest thing was Jesse's meeting with his family. When he saw his mother, he couldn't recognize her because she had aged 20 years. Bernice also came to welcome him. Jesse apologized to her for getting lost from his grandfather and told her everything was dark. After a long investigation, the police released Nick. He decided to maintain his relationship with Jesse, his old friend who had returned from another world. If you liked the video, don't forget to like and subscribe to the channel and activate the bell. Stay tuned for even stronger stories.